Sunday. It was 500 miles at the biggest, baddest track in NASCAR, the Talladega Superspeedway in Alabama. The wild card race of the chase was pretty wild, all right. Its last laps changing the championship picture big.
The green flag is waving. We are down to 2 laps to go at Talladega.
Jamie McMurray brings the field to the back straightaway now with Casey Kane lined up at the back door. Logano is there.
Oh, trouble. Further back now. Kurt Busch goes around, slams the inside retaining wall.
Mark Martin got upside down, barrel rolled, got into the outside wall.
Jamie McMurray is going to be the winner here today. He was leading at the white flag when they came to the line.
What a day at Talladega. Wow.
Jamie McMurray ended an 86 race winless streak Sunday by winning the Amp Energy 500 at Talladega. It was a race that featured 58 lead changes and saw Jimmie Johnson run 30th all day and somehow end up with a top 10 finish and greatly widen his championship lead with 3 races to go. From hanging back to no bumping, the big wreck to fuel shortages, we'll talk about how it all went down with our Monday Roundtable panel next on NASCAR Now.
Welcome to NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot.
From the Home Depot Garage Studios, welcome to the Is Everybody Happy edition of the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable. Usually after a Talladega race, the fans are thrilled and the drivers are maybe a little frustrated, maybe a little disgruntled. With the exception of Jamie McMurray, I haven't heard too many people at all thrilled about Sunday's race, and particularly judging by the feedback on ESPN.com, the fans especially. We talk about it all with our Monday Roundtable panel. This week, Ray Evernham, Randy LaJoie, and Ricky Craven. Having had a day to digest it, how do you feel about what you saw on Sunday?
Boy, Alan, we talked last night. I don't know. I needed a day to digest it. You know, I think that NASCAR accomplished keeping the race safe, even though we saw some wrecks. I did not like the first 150 laps of that race, but at the end, it was basically the same old Talladega racing.
Yeah, and I agree, Ray, that the safety has definitely evolved. It continues to evolve. Car staying on the ground hasn't evolved and needs to dominate the focus of NASCAR going forward. It's a risk to the fans, it's a risk to the drivers. It needs to get their full attention.
Lucky and good go together. Lucky is Jimmie Johnson when they weren't that good all day. But the good part of that is everybody walked out of the Infield Care Center 10 years ago, we wouldn't have seen that. So the safety part of it is 2 thumbs up. But the racing part, boy, that was a little bit different.
The silver lining, definitely, the safe day that it was. Let's start with the pronouncement and how the mood of the day kind of changed Sunday morning in the drivers' meeting before the race. NASCAR informed the drivers that they would not be allowed to bump draft in the corners Sunday at Talladega.
All the way through turns 1 and 2, all the way through turns 3 and 4, you will not be allowed to push someone, to bump draft them, or to shove them through the turns.
You are in control of your actions on the track with your throttle, wheel, and brakes. Be smart and responsible with all 3 of these items in your race car. You know the cause and effect of each when you don't. Pushing the car or hooking up with a car through any part of the turns will be judged as aggressive driving through the entire race, all 188 laps. Keep some spacing off the car in front of you through the turns through the entire length of the race.
Well, for the first part of the race, drivers seemed to really take the warning to heart, with a lot of the racing being calm by Talladega standards, single file racing for a lot of the opening 100 laps of the day. As the finish drew closer, though, the racing returned to more like what we've seen recently at Talladega. 2 and 3 wide racing, lots of jockeying for position, and even some bumping and banging around that resulted in some crashes we'll talk about a little bit later on. So how did the new rules impact the race?
We do a service for those guys. You know, many of them that come to us and say, you got to help us from ourselves, and we do just that. And so we took away the bumping or the hooking up in the corners, and the incidents that happened were the free zones that we weren't regulating anything today.
You had to know when to push and when not to push, and I got warned. I think I got warned once when I pushed my teammate out to the lead, but it's tough to race that way. You got to know when to push and when not to push, but it's the box we're painted in. You got to make the most of it.
I didn't find
find that it was a new rule or a different rule, and the fact that Mike Hilton verbalized it didn't give me any information that I hadn't had at rules meetings before. David Hoots normally had gone through the same thing. But the thing that is not clear, it's not clear how much you can push and where you can push and where that line is. And they continually tell you, you know where the line is. Don't go over that line. Don't let us have to settle the issue. But right now, I don't know if we know where the line is. I don't know if we know how far we can push. Certainly, I was nervous because I know my guys were pushing some too.
You can't ask 43 human beings to be perfect for 4 hours at a half-inch apart from each other. And we hate it that we're in this box and we're painting in this box, but there's no alternative. As long as we keep the banking here at Talladega, we're going to keep having to run restrictor plates and keep racing like this. It's not fun by no means. The happiest day of the weekend is when you can walk away from this place when the race is over with.
All right, first thing, no one was penalized for violating the bump drafting rule in the corners. Did you feel the announcement affected the racing, and how?
I think it affected the racing. I think you saw at different points in the race, the single file racing, and these guys said, this is like a dress rehearsal. The veteran drivers in particular said, look, I've done this before. There's no sense pushing now. Let's wait till the end, and that's what they did.
No, I definitely think it affected the racing, especially the first part of the race. I believe that the guys rode around in line for the first 150 laps, and the key word being there, you just heard Jack Roush, one of the smartest guys in the garage area, say he's not sure they know where the line is. If you're going to make a rule, there's got to be a clear-cut way, black and white, and how you're going to enforce it. And that didn't happen on Sunday.
Why did they have to make a rule? These guys only took 4 races to figure out with this new car that 2 cars hooked together pushing each other. I would have never thought about pushing the guy all around the racetrack at Talladega. Number one, the racetrack was always too rough. Now it's very smooth. The bumpers didn't line up, so you didn't have that option. But now, if you can push somebody, man, hammer down. Go ahead. But now you can't do it.
I want to go back to something we heard Robin Pemberton, NASCAR's Vice President of Competition, say after the race in his comments, and I'll rephrase it in this way. After the April race at Talladega and the Daytona race in July, there was discussion between drivers and teams and NASCAR that they needed to do something because the bump drafting was getting out of hand in the corners of these races. So they did. They were criticized for not doing something before. On this Monday, they're being criticized for doing something. How do they win?
Well, I'll tell you this. They do deserve credit for making a change. And if the drivers are coming to them in groups and saying, look, protect us from ourselves, that's number one mistake. Drivers need to take some initiative and be responsible for themselves. But here's my point. If you want to fix this, make it difficult. All they did was make it easier by taking horsepower away and saying you can't bump draft in the corners, which is the most difficult part of the equation. The only way to fix this without tearing up the racetrack is to make it more difficult so talent separates itself. It's the only answer.
And you said, how do they make everybody happy? How did they win? There's 4 of us on this panel. Can you get all 4 of us to agree on anything? We can't even decide where we're going to dinner. Right? They don't win. They can say, okay, what's their first priority? First priority was safety, and that's what they did. Now, if the drivers are going, the guys that complained are happy they did something. The guys that didn't want it are not happy. They're not going to make all the drivers happy. So is the priority safety, the show, or making the drivers happy? I think it's got to be safety, and I think it's got to be the show.
Ricky, you said you want to make it difficult, and then the drivers can complain. The cars are too hard to drive. I mean, right now at Talladega, the cars are just too easy to drive and to run 190.
But I will make this point. I agree with you, Randy, but NASCAR has a responsibility of governing the series and the sport and not trying to protect the drivers from themselves, but try to make this thing difficult so talent exceeds, and the fact is, this is just far too easy. That's the problem with Talladega racing.
And I want some perspective on that because during Sunday's telecast during a commercial, we were kicking this around among ourselves, and Rusty, it was just after the Tony Stewart comments about somebody send me some no-dos. And I said to Rusty, I said, now look, I've never been in a race car at 190 miles an hour at Talladega, but I can't imagine going that fast, that far off somebody's bumper could be anything but nerve-wracking. And the response I got back was, give it about 3 laps and you'd find it that way.
Yeah.
And I can't comprehend that.
And you know what? If you do this long enough, you realize you get very little for doing it at lap 10, 20, 30, so on and so forth. This all comes down to positioning yourself at the end. And quite frankly, the guys who succeeded the other day, they weren't mixing it up at the very early part of the race.
It becomes a chess game. It's a strategy. There's different ways to race, and we all know and agree that the speeds need to be kept down on these cars. They're not going to change the shape of the racetrack. They're not going to shorten it. They're not going to do the banking. The fans love to come and see restrictor plate racing, so all NASCAR can do is keep the speeds safe so that the cars stay reasonably on the ground and the drivers don't get hurt in the crashes.
Going to talk about the cars getting into the air in a minute. If, as a panel of 3 here, you were to offer NASCAR advice for the next plate race, which, by the way, will be the Daytona 500 come February, would you make the same announcement in the drivers' meeting? Would you do something different? What would you do?
Well, first off, the degree of difficulty does increase at Daytona, and we all recognize that. It's a handling track. Drivers do have to roll out of the gas at times. That fixes the problem, by and large. But one thing I would do that has nothing to do with the race car is the racetrack. I'd get rid of all the grass in the infield of these racetracks. It does nothing to help slow the car down, which absolutely helps keep them on the ground.
Move the fans back. Move the fans back, make the fences stronger, and say, guys, you want to go out there and run fast? This place was built for speed. Tighten the belts and hang on.
Well, this is something that worked a little while ago. Ricky and I talked about it before the show. There was a time when we ran a 12-gallon fuel cell. Just the pit stops break them up for a while, 20 laps at a time, then they get packed back up. Maybe go back to the smaller fuel cell again. It breaks them up for a little while. It's a part fix.
It's an option, and there'll be a lot of ideas thrown on the table.
And I got to say, I was entertained with the green flag stops as much as any part of the race.
Yeah. We'll talk about some of that as we go through this Monday roundtable. Our Sports Nation poll question for today: we want to know what you thought the most interesting storyline from Sunday's race was. Jamie McMurray's win, Ryan Newman's crash, Jimmy Johnson's strategy, or the no bump drafting rule. Go to ESPN.com's NASCAR page and vote. We'll see your results later in the show. Still to come, we talk about those topics. Ryan Newman's big wreck. Why did this car take off? And what can be done to keep it from happening again? Jamie McMurray scored a huge win for him, and we'll look at some of the great moves he made to get that 26 car to victory lane. And Jimmy Johnson's hangback strategy that got him a top 10 finish. That and more still to come on the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable.
NASCAR Now, presented by The Home Depot. Visit HomeDepot.com. More saving, more doing. That's the power of The Home Depot.
Oh, here's a call upside down.
Big-time crash upside down.
Ryan Newman.
Trouble further back. Ryan Newman up and over off the end of the back straightaway. On his roof, sliding up, pounding the safer barrier. Marcus Ambrose is collected, and Kevin Harvick as well is collected off the end of the back straightaway.
Is on the speedway for an accident over in turn number 3, and several cars involved in it, and a hard crash for a couple of those drivers.
The big wreck, what we've come to expect as the big wreck at Talladega, is usually the one that involves 15 or 20 cars. Certainly what Ryan Newman went through on Sunday was the big wreck in that race. It just was a little bit different than most. It happened with about 5 laps to go. Newman running behind Tony Stewart and in front of Marcos Ambrose in the draft when the field accordioned in front of him. Contact sent the car spinning backwards, and look out. The flying flip, then up the banking, into the wall, spinning around, tumbling down before slamming one more time hard there on the roof. It took a while for them to get Newman out of the car. Some 8 minutes after the workers went to work on him, and again, they had the time of knowing he was okay. They finally got the car flipped over, the roof cut off, and Ryan came out okay. But boy, what a ride for Ryan Newman.
Really disappointed. I mean, we had this race back here in the spring and complained about cars getting airborne, and now, ironically, I'm the guy that gets upside down and have a roll bars down on top of my helmet and stuck upside down on top inside my U.S. Army Chevrolet. So it's just disappointing. I mean, I wish NASCAR would do something. It was a boring race for the fans. You know, that's not something anybody wants to see. At least I hope not. If they do, go home, because you don't belong here. And just, you know, a product of this racing and what NASCAR's put us into with this box, with these restrictor plates, with these types of cars, you know, with the yellow line, with no bump draft and no passing. And drivers used to be able to respect each other and race around each other. Richard Petty, David Pearson, Bobby Allison, all those guys have always done that. And I guess they don't think much of us anymore.
Certainly, Ryan, some strong comments after coming from the Infield Care Center. Fortunately, okay after that nasty wreck on Sunday. First, want to go back and look at how the wreck started. We were talking about this among ourselves a lot on the telecast, but the old accordion effect is what basically set this off.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I went to Stewart Haas. I got in Ryan's backup car. As you see, behind Ryan is Marcus Ambrose, and he has no clue that Ryan's shutting down. Look, there's no instant Ricky and Ray, when I started racing Daytona and Talladega, your right hand was connected to your right foot. When your right foot come off the gas, your hand went in the air. But the vision is very limited with these spoilers, or these, whatever they are, the wings on the back of these cars, that, you know, I sat in Ryan's car, which I think that's why he was sore, because I shouldn't be able to fit in his seat. But I sat in his car, and I could not see through Tony Stewart's car, or I could just barely see the guy waving inside that car. So the vision is a big problem with the accordion. You can't always just trust your spotters.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Randy. I don't know if it was this way for you, but when I first went to Talladega for the first time, I went to Harry Gant. I also went to Rusty Wallace, and both of them said, look, you drive basically with one hand and you use the other all day long. If you check up, tell them, give them a little bit of notice. And that's how I learned to race on restricted plate racing. I don't know if that's gone away, but if it has, then they could help themselves by getting together with some of the veteran drivers.
No, I think the fact that some of that vision has gone away does take them. But in a case like that, as we were watching that accordion, it is a little bit like being on the freeway. I don't think Ryan knew that those guys were stopping. And then since there was a little bit of a gap back to the 47 car, Marcus Ambrose was last one in and got in the back of him. Didn't mean to do it.
You know, I got thinking about this. We're going up I-20 from the racetrack in Talladega towards the Atlanta airport last night, and we got behind an SUV that had very dark windows behind it. And when I'm on the highway, I've come to rely on that top brake light on a lot of cars, like about 5 cars up, to let me know when the traffic's going to slow down. Yeah. Well, with that wing, you can't see the guy in front of you, let alone 5 cars up to know when the traffic is slowing down.
And these are the things that the drivers have to go to NASCAR with. Instead of criticizing the racetrack, instead of criticizing the restricted plate size, go to them with some real legitimate things that they can fix or work on. Say, look, we got to be able to communicate with one another, and these wings or the windows are restricting us from that.
Hey guys, you know, but that's a good point. But let me make another point. Right here, we're talking about them waving their hands to stop from bumping, and it was okay to bump on the straightaway. Yeah. So some guys want to bump. You talk about not being able to make everybody happy. Some guys want to be able to bump, and here, you know, we see an accident caused by bumping. It's that all darned if you do, darned if you don't. NASCAR's in a tough position. All they can do is continue to make the racetrack and the cars as safe, because they're not ever going to get everybody to buy into doing the same thing.
And to that end, they've done a heck of a job with this car.
Let me talk about another thing which NASCAR did to try and help a situation that we still saw the situation at Talladega. Before this race, as a response to the wreck where Carl Edwards' car got up into the air and into the catch fencing back in April, NASCAR put a smaller restrictor plate on the car to try and help keep the cars from getting in the air when they got turned around sideways and backwards. Ryan Newman's car sure took a lot of air on Sunday. Why is this happening?
It did. When the car's going straight at 190 miles an hour, the air's going straight over that wing, creating downforce, pushing the rear of the car down. There, it turns around. It's going 180 miles an hour backwards. That wing, you're a pilot. You know that wing went from making downforce to making lift. The air got under the car, stopped. Even though the roof flaps were working, the wing overrode it, and the car went over. Really not a lot they could do. As fast as that car went around in the wind, the wing, it picked it up.
Ray, I was at the IROC series at 178 miles an hour, and there was cars on that lived there. How slow before a car doesn't get up in the air? Do you know?
I do know specifically about the IROC cars because I worked there, and it was 154 miles an hour. The cars achieved liftoff, and it's an angle as they turn around. It's really not the 180 degrees angle into the wind. It's a little bit, you know, I don't know if it's more or less, but as that right rear corner gets out there, you need to get the roof flaps open. These things, the shape of them specifically now, including the shape of the new car, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's not just the wing. It's the shape of the car. It's the rocker skirts. It's everything that happens. Everything that they do to keep those cars on the ground and handling when they're going frontwards works the opposite when that car turns around. It turns basically into an hairpin.
And that was the point I was trying to make with the asphalt. NASCAR spent a lot of money putting asphalt down the backstretch, put it all the way through the corners, because anything to help slow these cars down is going to help the cause and the effect.
That would have helped me at Daytona years ago.
Yeah. Well, we're sitting here, you know, you might help here with these guys are experts because both of them flew through the air. One at Daytona, one at Talladega.
They both know what it's like.
I was at Talladega too. Yeah, I did both.
When you looked at the wreckage of Ryan Newman's car, and granted they cut the bars off it to help get him out of it, but when you saw the car, what encouraged you? What concerned you?
Well, he was upside down. He wasn't there a long time. A large part of that was because of the new head restraints around the seat. It is very tough. Even if the car was just sitting upside down, it's tough to get under. You know, the cage is designed basically the same as the old car, but it's higher. So he would have been, in my opinion, in more trouble had he been in the older car. If that cage would have come down in an old car, he would have had a lot less room.
Absolutely. You look at Elias Sadler crash, very similar to what Ryan Newman did. He did very similar. He might even wrecked a couple more times, but he ended up on top of his wheels, and Elias a little bit thinner than Ryan is, and he was able to get out. That's one thing NASCAR, obviously, they're going to be looking at is why did that roof come down? The more you put a driver in a cocoon to keep him safe, the more difficult it is when he's upside down, when he's on its side, to get out. It is very difficult to get out.
The cocoon kept him safe through the violent crash, but then if the car had been on fire or something, always something to be learned from the wreck and how to get that driver out of the car. Still to come on NASCAR Now, Sunday's winner, yeah, Jamie McMurray won the race. We'll talk about how he held off some serious challenges to take home the trophy on Sunday. And a report from Talladega on Monday's test of the new Nationwide Series race car. That all still to come.
Welcome back to NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot.
On ESPN's Monday Night Football, a good matchup, the Atlanta Falcons and the undefeated New Orleans Saints in the Big Easy and NFC South fight. Starting at 8:30 Eastern Time, coverage begins with Monday Night Countdown, served by Applebee's. That's at 7 Eastern Time. Jamie McMurray scored what is a huge win for him Sunday at Talladega. He ended up leading the most laps, 32 in all of those coming in the final 40 laps of the race. He had to hold off a number of challenges from drivers like Dale Jr. and David Stremme, including a three-wide fight for the lead with just over 10 laps to go. On the final restart, he got away from Brian Vickers on the final green-white checker shuffle and was out in front when the caution waved, then had enough fuel to make it around to victory lane.
I elected to ride around the back the first 100 laps, and about 75 or 80 laps into it, I saw guys starting to race, and you've been out there for an hour and a half or so, and I was like, well, maybe it's time to go, and I thought, no, I'm just going to ride back here until we at least get to lap 100, and I got really lucky there at the end, and I even said on the radio, I'm like, this is just going to be luck of who gets to the front at the right time. And I moved to the bottom, and it just happened that Matt Kenseth was right behind me, and Matt stuck with me, and it worked out really good for both of us until that last caution came out.
And the race kind of played out like we wanted it to. We kind of fell back there at the beginning because it just seems like we can go to the front here, and the last time we got caught up 7 laps in, and today we decided to start at the back and just work our way up toward the end, and there at the end got in the front when we needed to, and he was able to hold them off.
It's been a long year. We've had several missed opportunities. We certainly haven't given Ford Motor Company or our sponsors what we'd hoped to this year. And for Jamie to be able to have a good race today and be able to win is certainly doesn't make the year what we'd hoped for, but it certainly bodes well for for the remaining races.
Jamie McMurray's third career Sprint Cup win ended a 23-race streak of chase races being won by chase drivers. Also ended a personal 86-race dry spell dating back to Daytona in July of 2007. Congratulations to Jamie. Seemed like every time somebody made a run at McMurray in those final laps, he found a way to stay out front and hold him off. I remember one, Mark Martin and Dale Jr. came up there, made a charge. David Stremme made a charge. Every time somebody made a charge at that 26, Jamie found a way to stay out front.
Yeah, we talk so much about the big one and surviving the big one. It's more than that. It really is a technique. It's different than any other type of racing they do in the Sprint Cup Series, and Jamie McMurray is very good at it. You have to anticipate the lane changes. You have to anticipate when you're going to lose momentum, when you're going to gain momentum, and you know how you do that, folks? You do it with a spotter, but you also do it with feel. The back of the car will get a little bit light when you get a good push, particularly if somebody's lined up with your bumper. But you have to feel that, and you make your adjustments and you make your lane change choices because of that feel.
And one of the things that helped him, Ricky, I do believe, Matt Kenseth committed to his back bumper. Matt Kenseth says, I'm staying with you. Let's go. I'm committed to you. And he did. And knowing that, it's a little bit better. Like I said, a couple of guys made run-ons, but he knew that his buddy wasn't going to leave his tail.
Another guy played the hang out in the back strategy, and he took home the trophy.
He did. You know, again, it's not the strategy that I like or the strategy that I would employ, but again, that's why I only have one win as a crew chief at Talladega. But, you know, hey, great for them, you know, for the whole Roush Fenway organization and for Jamie McMurray especially. They're going through some tough times, and Jack's had, as he said, some opportunities to win races this year, so it was good to see those guys victory lane.
And particularly a huge win for Jamie, given his uncertain status for next year.
Well, nothing helps with sponsors and rides like wins. Yes. People like wins. You know, for the next week or so, Jamie's face, his sponsor, his car number will be plastered all over the media.
The late Bobby Hamilton says you win a cup race, secures you for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Jamie's hoping that turns out to be the case. Yeah. Another guy, by the way, who is looking for a ride, and sooner than he thought, David Stremme, did a great job of trying to find a way to the front of that race, and he got foiled up by some fuel strategy late, but both he and Matt Kenseth fell victim to having to pit for fuel just before the race was ready to be restarted for the final time.
Yeah, and because of that, they didn't get the attention they deserved. We're giving it to them now. There's more than just the playoffs going on, folks. Some guys are fighting for the job, and they worked hard yesterday. Got a little for it.
You know, I think David is going to run Pensacola in the late model, but, you know, there's 10 guys that had to pit after that red flag. They run out of fuel. That was just mind-boggling to me, is how they do that when pit road was open before this situation came into effect.
Well, 30-some cars on the lead lap. You give up the track position with just a green-white checker to go?
Drivers,
yes.
Drivers,
yes.
Drivers and former drivers, to even worse, are the smartest crew chiefs.
Hey guys, one of the toughest places to figure accurate fuel mileage with you guys on and off the gas pedal all the time are the plate races.
Put it back in
because
our hand.
it doesn't it just doesn't compute, and sometimes being off a 10th or 2 laps per gallon, you can put you in there out of gas.
I've noticed a lot of drivers say they're saving gas this year and come up empty. So
how do you save gas at a plate track?
I agree.
Yeah.
Same way you do every place else.
Bring
Keep your foot off it, but how do you know?
That's right.
At a place where you're supposed to have your foot to the floor all the way around. I know. I'm not a driver. One thing, I mentioned Stremme looking for a ride sooner than he was expecting to. Penske Racing announcing today that Brad Keselowski will go into that 12 car to get a jump start on 2010, and Brad will drive the final 3 races of 2009. Still to come, the story of championship contenders who all got swept up in the wreck that ended the race after being in the hunt for good results. Mark Martin, particularly among them. And the strategy that saw the championship leader run 30th all day and end up with a top 10 finish and a much bigger point lead.
Welcome back to NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot.
Now the championship, and the bizarre day it was for the top chasers. Jimmie Johnson started on the pole, but quickly slid back to the tail of the pack, where he basically ran all race. Johnson was 31st with 15 laps to go, pitted for fuel under the caution for Ryan Newman's wreck with less than 5 to go, avoided the final wreck by 1 car, and came home with a 6th place finish.
My day, it went according to plan, except for the fact that everybody behaved pretty well and we didn't have the wreck. And then we were caught in a position with a green-white checkered in 25th. And luckily, Chad brought us to pit road and put gas in this thing, and guys started falling off and running out of gas, and it put us in position to finish well and be ahead of that big wreck that took place.
We did decide to go with about 12 laps to go, and he was able to shoot up about mid-pack, and then we got shuffled back right before that wreck happened. So it's a give and take. You know, when I told Jimmy to go, Mark was running 3rd, and when he took off to go, Mark was by 2 laps later, he was already back to like 30th. So it just you just don't know, and you just gotta take your lumps as they come and hope you're in the right place at the right time.
Things didn't go as well for the others closest to Johnson in points entering the race. Mark Martin was caught in the final wreck that ended the event. Kurt Busch turned into his path, the contact sending Martin's car into a roll. He went from racing for a top 10 finish to 28th, just like that.
I hope everybody enjoyed the show there. I don't know what it looked like. It looked pretty exciting from my viewpoint there, but I have no idea. I don't have a clue. Don't know what happened out there.
It's a necessary evil. This track's here. The fans love it. It's good for the fans. It's something that's good for NASCAR. A lot of people like to watch it, but it's really frustrating for the drivers and the crew chiefs and the teams that work on these cars. So it's necessary evil, and unfortunately for us, we got the bad end of the stick today, and it seems like we have a lot this year.
Jeff Gordon missed the big Ryan Newman wreck, but after the red flag, ran out of fuel. Had to get pushed back to the pits just before the last restart. Then he, too, was caught in that final wreck. Damage to the 24 car. Jeff finished 20th.
Talladega is always going to, on a green-white checkered, is always going to be pretty hairy and crazy. But, I don't think we had as much of that when the cars didn't close up as much. But, then again, we didn't have the ability to pass as much. So, I don't know what the solution is. I look forward to the day when I can watch this race from TV instead of being inside of it. It's fun, exciting, and just so crazy at the same time and just what the outcome is going to be.
Juan Pablo Montoya also stopped for fuel just before the final restart, and yes, was also caught in the final wreck. Damage to the 42 car when he got knocked around in the chain reaction, and we'll see it here. Montoya wound up finishing 19th. Tony Stewart's car heavily damaged in the wreck that Ryan Newman got most of the attention in. Stewart finished 35th. In all, none of those closest to Jimmy Johnson in the standings entering Talladega were very happy when they left Alabama. So as a result, Jimmy Johnson added 66 points to his lead over Mark Martin. It's now a $184 with 3 races to go. All the others in the top 5 fell further back as well. Instead of Talladega being the race where the others had a chance to gain ground on Jimmy, it turned into just the opposite. So Jimmy Johnson rides around basically around 30th place all race long, ends up with the top 10, while all these other guys trying to gain ground on Jimmy wound up getting wrecked in the final green-white checker and end up finishing behind him. How do you react to that?
Well, I am just amazed because it blows me away. And all I can say is I am going to make Jimmy Johnson my new best friend. We're going to Vegas. We're buying lottery tickets. And Chad Canals is my new life coach. I'm sorry, Rusty, but I'm taking Chad taxes, business decisions, because those guys are incredible. They just don't seem to be able to do anything wrong. They are just making a shambles out of this race.
Now, we're having some laughs about it, but seriously, some people would find the ride around in 30th all race strategy distasteful. What do you think?
I think that if you've watched this long enough that you got to expect that these drivers are going to take some responsibility and plan their own race. They had a strategy, they stuck with it. A lot of drivers didn't stick with it as long, and even I was concerned, and I said earlier, being in the back for 90% of the race compromises your timing. There's nothing like being in the mix. You draft, you understand what you can get away with, what you can't. Jimmy didn't do any of that for 90% of the race, and when it came time to go, whether you like the circumstances or not, he found a way to get it done, he and Chad Canals.
There's a dozen positions there that I don't understand why these guys didn't pit. If they knew they were going to be close, they just handed him a dozen positions.
But that's the key, Randy. We always talk about know your car, know your mileage. That's where the communication that you talked about before between Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canals. Chad Canals knows his car. He knew he was going to give up a good finish if he didn't come and get fuel. And a lot of other guys are just missing the boat there. I mean, it's incredible what those guys are doing. And Jimmy believes enough in Chad to come down pit road with no argument and go back and start at the rear of the field.
And a word you said before when we were discussing this situation off the air about how disciplined you have to be to run back there like that all day.
Well, you heard Jamie say, okay, at 80 laps, he's like, I got to go. And then he's seen guys go, and he's like, nope, I committed myself to lap 100. And he did. And look what happened. His timing, he says, I was lucky enough to be timed at the end of this race in the front. And that's one of these, what restrictor plates do, is you got to get the timing right. Say, okay, I got to get to the front. And it took him 40 laps. Jimmy missed it. They were going to run 25th. And he was very concerned. All of a sudden, 10 guys pull out. He gets in the right spot. They wreck behind him.
When it's your day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is it, when it's over, it seems like it was planned that way?
Yeah, when it's your day. So what do the numbers mean from here? Well, Jimmy Johnson basically needs to average a 10th place finish in the final 3 races, and that is provided Mark Martin earns maximum points in the final 3 races. And just so you know, Jimmy's certainly done that 10th place average or better at Texas and Phoenix. He's been just outside that at Homestead, but then he's really kind of had to play it conservatively there for the last couple of years too, so that's not a fair number. You've seen the standings. How does a 48 play it from here?
It's like this, 7 races ago, 12 drivers controlled their own destiny. Now it's down to 1. One driver controls his own destiny. That's exactly what Jimmy Johnson will do. He'll manage these races. He's too smart, too good, and he's got a crew chief that's always thinking a step ahead, obviously.
Randy, how are we doing on the shirts?
Well, the shirts got 48 on the Hendricks catalog. I think the only one way that he's going to stop him, owner's points. Jeff Gordon owns that 48 car. Sit him out for a week. Sorry.
Just to let you in on the joke, a couple weeks ago, Randy was asked to make a championship prediction. He said, print the T-shirts that say Hendrick Motorsports Champions. Of course, the top 3 cars at points were all Hendrick Motorsports. Now he's going to put a 48 on them.
That's right.
I got it. Now on ESPN.com, Ed Hinton writes that Jamie McMurray may have won the race at Talladega, but it'll take a miracle for anyone to catch Jimmy Johnson in the chase. That's probably true. Up next, our final bit of review from Talladega, how catching the caution at the pit road commitment line sent the eventual winner and others to the back. Home to the biggest, fastest track in NASCAR, Talladega Superspeedway, an incredible, breathtaking racing that'll keep these fans jumping up and down out of their seats all afternoon and keep the drivers' stomachs in knots, especially those competing for the championship.
Have a little fun and enjoy the chaos here. Let's go get them, Jeremy. Be confident. You're the best out there, bud.
Got a long ways to go and then a nice shootout at the end, bud. Let's have some fun.
Speed flag is in the air, and that air will be stirred up at about 200 miles an hour.
My speed truck along here pretty good. I mean, I'm just running wide open.
Chris holding to the floor still. Haven't let up yet.
That was wild. I didn't even try to drop back like that. Nobody wanted that inside lane.
The 88 needs to move down 2 foot off that wall further so I can push him better. This would be a good time for y'all to take a snack break and go on a convention stand or anything.
Somebody will make a move here in a little bit. But this is good right now. It's calm.
Here comes Jamie McMurray. He's getting a shove from Juan Pablo Montoya.
Big vibration on in the gear shifter. I just could hear a little bit hitting underneath the car. There's just kind of across the whole track. There's this little stuff. Got a tire rub from getting pump drafted too hard.
Here's the two.
Oh, here goes Kurt Busch. Denny Hamlin getting complete. Oh, he's blowing up. He's blowing up.
14 cars talking about going here with about 25 to go. A couple guys up ahead and we're starting to get antsy as well, so just be on guard here when they do start to split up.
They're almost leaning on one another, bouncing off one another. Here comes Kane. Whoa, trouble further back. Ryan Newman up and over off the end of the back straightaway.
And he landed on top of me. I'm all right. The full form of racing. Right front's flat, broke a brake line. I got brakes, but I'm not going to have them. It's going to be a long one. We got one upside down. Save a lot. Save a lot. Kind of concerned about fuel here. How many laps to the good are you? 1 lap.
The 24 and 5 are where?
24 is 5th. The 5 is 9th.
We got 7 in it. We're fine. We're plenty good. Bad news is the 48's up there, but we'll see what happens here, Mark. We'll have a green-white checkers.
Oh, I'm out, dude. I'm out. We're going back and forth, man. It's going to be in the pickup. There's going to be at least a gallon in there.
And all these drivers peeling off guys to get fuel is really helping the 48 car.
I may kiss you when this is over, Chad. Bring her home.
The green flag is waving. We are down to 2 laps to go.
Oh, here goes Kurt Busch around.
Green white checker, we win. Don't wreck it.
McMurray at the age of 33 gets his first win in 85 races.
That's awesome. Good job, Lawrence.
That was spectacular.
I like it. I like it a lot. Good job. First time I ever turned over, boys. They're having a party down in the pits, Jamie.
Some other notes from Sunday's race. Tony Stewart's streak of 55 races without a DNF came to an end at Talladega. Jeff Burton scored his first top 5 finish since May. And thanks to his 8th place showing Sunday, Brad Keselowski's averaged an 11th place result over his last 3 Cup starts. One other note, Jimmy Johnson, one of 4 drivers caught in a difficult situation in lap 50. They're coming to pit road for a green flag stop when Kurt Busch spun in the tri-oval. Just before they get to the pit road entry line, the pit road open-close light switches from green to red. They hit the commitment line because it's pretty much too late to bail out, although Jeff Gordon does. And they were all penalized by NASCAR. They had to start at the back of the pack for the restart. First of all, correct call or not?
By the rule book?
Yes.
Correct call.
Okay.
But is there enough room once that turns red to stop? No, there's not. Not at 55 miles an hour. We went through this at Watkins Glen. Understand NASCAR's got to go by the rule book, but they've also got to give those guys some buffer. Impossible to stop. Those guys, watch them. They're coming in. They're trying to get slowed down to 55. Kurt spins. They're still running 100 and something, okay? The light comes on, and they're too close. Gordon is the only one that's seeing it and was the last one in line and able to get out.
What would you do if you were going to change that setup somehow?
You know, the only way those guys, I think what happened was these guys are slowing down. They're downshifting. They look and they see the light is green. They're like, okay, great. They're looking to slow down. They're watching their tachometer, say, I'm downshifting. I got to get to 4,200 in second gear, and they're watching their tach. They don't see that light turn a different color. And then next thing you know, they're on pit road. It's like, when you come into it, goes, well, the light was green, but they changed it probably too late.
So they'll have to have a sequence of lights. You know, they'll have to have more sets of lights and back them up so that they can follow this set of light. You know, maybe 2 or 3, because they're too far down. To Randy's point, what they do is you start shifting your attention to the speed, and depending on where you pitted, you start looking for your pit road sign immediately when you get to that point.
And like I said, by the rule, correct. Consistently applied ruling, absolutely. Jimmy Johnson got tagged for it at Pocono earlier this year. But a tough situation for a driver to be in when he's there and that light turns from green to red. Coming up next, we go back to Talladega, but this time for Monday's test of the new Nationwide Series car. Who was there and what people were saying next. ESPN's Monday Night Football is a good one tonight in the Big Easy. The Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. Little NFC South fight. Saints 6-0, trying to hold on to the top spot in the division. It's Monday Night Football, ESPN. Falcons Saints, 8:30 Eastern tonight. Coverage starts with Monday Night Countdown, presented by Applebee's at 7 Eastern. There were cars on the track at Talladega this Monday, but it had nothing to do with the weekend weather. NASCAR had a test for the new Nationwide Series car, the first super speedway test after previous runs at Richmond and Charlotte. 8 cars on the track. What did the drivers think of the new car's performance on the big speedway?
We started in a much different place. I mean, the center of this car is the same as, and the rear clip's the same as the Cup car. There's a few things that are different, but very small. Most of it's aerodynamic. And then there's some things that were done as we learned about the COT that were applied to this car, and some things will be applied to the COT in 2011 as well. So it's a learning process.
We've had the luxury on the Nationwide side to have 5 years of experience from the Cup garage. So we're taking, you know, just reams of data that they've developed to help us get to this point. And that's why when we get out here during this test, we're a heck of a lot farther along than we expected to be at this point.
We're in hopes that it should be different enough from the Cup car that it'll take a little bit different strategies when they get on the racetrack. So early on the process here, it's about getting everything close, getting the cars comfortable, and getting drivers to get some drafting time.
The Nationwide Series new car will run 4 times next year in the second half of the season. Makes its debut at Daytona July 2nd. Car's going to have the same wheelbase as the Cup car. One of the primary differences, instead of the Cup car's rear wing, the Nationwide car will have a rear spoiler. So the Ford Mustang, Dodge Challenger, plus the Chevy and the Toyota all on the racetrack. You've all seen the cars. Thoughts on the differences between the new Nationwide car and the new Cup car?
I think the idea is good as with the new Cup car. Certainly the 110-inch wheelbase, keeping the center of the car the same. The idea should, again, cut cost and make everything more compatible.
It's fun, it's fresh. You know, everybody sort of fantasizes with these muscle cars, and I don't own one yet, but I will probably after watching the Nationwide Series next year. We talked at lunch how important it is, though, to bring back the Chevy, Ford, Dodge, you know, argument and
the identity.
Yeah.
I personal opinion on me, I think it's really important. Given how fans perceive the new Cup car, how will fans receive this new Nationwide Series car?
As long as we call it a new Nationwide Series car and we're not calling it a COT, I think the race fans are going to be okay with it. It's a cool-looking car. You know, it's good for safety, but man, some of these owners are saying it's going to be quite expensive to switch over.
Process of rolling this car out, 4 races next season, full season in 2011. What's the challenge for the teams between now and then, as well as for NASCAR to learn about this car?
Well, the challenge to the team owners, and I can speak as a team owner, financially it's very difficult to have 2 inventories of race cars and 2 inventories of parts and be building and developing 2 cars simultaneously, because you don't just stop working on your old car while you're building your new car. So it gets very expensive. I remember I was in the middle of it as a car owner when we started to go to the new car, and it was very, very expensive.
Some of the things NASCAR worked on with the teams today, they started with the tapered spacer. They worked with a combination of the spacer and a restrictor plate. What's this car going to need for its races at Talladega down the road? Up next, we will look ahead to this weekend's chase race at Texas. Yeah, he'll probably be a star. Jimmy Johnson in that 48 car. We'll talk about it when NASCAR Now returns.
NASCAR Now, presented by the Home Depot. Visit HomeDepot.com. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. And in part by the U.S. Army. They're strong, then there's Army Strong. See strength like no other at GoArmy.com.
Also on track this Monday, 18 teams at Daytona doing a Goodyear tire test. Kyle Busch, Dale Jr., Matt Kenseth, and Talladega winner Jamie McMurray among the drivers. Toyota clinched its 4th consecutive Manufacturers Championship in the Truck Series when Kyle Busch won at Talladega Saturday. And Camping World West Series champ Jason Bowles going to make his Nationwide Series debut at Phoenix, planning to drive Doug Taylor's number 61 Ford. Before we get to Phoenix, we go to Texas this weekend. Nationwide Series Saturday, Sprint Cup Series on Sunday. I'm not asking anybody about the chase, but what do we have to look forward to in watching Sunday's race at Texas?
Well, I think if Jeff Gordon or Carl Edwards take those guns and shoot out Jimmy's tires, it'll be a good race.
I think Jeff Gordon's going to go have fun. I think that's a key component. He's going to win the race. But I will say the trouble spot at Texas is off turn 2. A lot of banking, several grooves to choose from, but the track flattens out. Watch turn 2 because drivers will fight to keep the car off the wall.
Didn't you hurt yourself in turn 4?
That was turn 4. Another trouble spot.
Okay. I wanted to remind you about that, you know.
All right. Go ahead.
I do believe there's 8 of the chase guys have won a race at Texas. So I think the front field is going to be all chase guys.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Our poll results. We asked you what you thought the most interesting storyline from Sunday's race was. McMurray's win, Newman's crash, Johnson's strategy, or the no bumping or the no bump drafting rule. I'll get this straight. 47% felt NASCAR's decision to ban bump drafting in the turns was of the most interest, and only one state in our poll voted Jamie McMurray's win as the most interesting story. That, by the way, was Hawaii. Aloha.
He has family there.
Okay. Jamie McMurray will be on NASCAR Now on Tuesday, by the way. We'll also hear from Jimmy Johnson on Tuesday's show. Final thoughts?
I want to thank Randy. It's been great. Last show of the year. Looking forward to doing it next year. Been a lot of fun, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's been fun.
Thank you, Randy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Always.
Thank you, guys. We got to thank
Teared
Alan.
up. He teared up.
He's wondering if this is his big send-off or something.
One of these days, we're going to take Alan's notes and just fling them. That's going to be cool.
Just to clear up one thing before we leave, Rusty was your life coach?
How'd that work for me?
I'll bet those are some interesting conversations, huh? Jamie McMurray, Jimmy Johnson, tomorrow on NASCAR Now. Off to Texas later this week. We'll watch Jimmy Johnson continue to chase that record-setting championship.